Joining us now, leading off our discussion tonight, is Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. She is the member of the Senate Committee on the Judiciary and, of course, the Commerce Committee. Senator Klobuchar, you have seen the situation in Minneapolis tonight. We're going to bring any live updates necessary for what might be happening there on the streets of Minneapolis tonight. What is your assessment of the situation there now?
Well, the reports are just coming, but I've talked to some people on the ground, people in Minnesota, and it appears that this involves ICE, and there was a shooting of someone, and then there also was injury to the ICE officer, and then there was melee, of course, in the streets. This doesn't surprise me because we are inundated with these ICE agents where, people should stay away from that scene right now. But the other side of this, Lawrence, is that they have sent 3,000 ICE agents at the last count, and our sworn officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul who are valiantly trying to do their jobs, there's only 1,100 of them. So that is what's going on. They are literally going to shopping malls. I met with some school superintendents today from the suburbs and school principals. They're also going to the close in and further out suburbs, into their parking lots, into arresting students, as was just pointed out, people who are legal, people with passports, people who are wrestled down and yelling, "I am a U.S. citizen." So this is truly an assault on our state. And when you see these people standing up in Menards parking lots and Targets, what's incredible about this is these aren't protests that have any notice that this is going to happen. These are people just standing up, filming, blowing whistles, and calling out what's happening because people just can't tolerate that you're going to treat people in our state. It's always had a big heart, and it's been through so much this year with the assassination of Melissa and Mark Hortman and the killing of those little sweet kids in the church. To have ICE come in like that is a total outrage.
Senator, you saw the resignation yesterday, unprecedented resignation in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. About 6 of the key prosecutors there who really make that office run. How does that change things?
Well, in a very bad way. This office is a treasure. It's gotten national justice awards in the past. One of the attorneys, Melinda Williams, worked on this major national human trafficking case. Joe Thompson, who is leading the fraud prosecutions that are righteous prosecutions where taxpayer money has been ripped off, and charged and convicted a number of people with many other cases to go. And he literally had to resign. And I spoke to him yesterday. I did not ask him the details of this resignation, but the reports are that these prosecutors who took an oath to protect the public, to make the public safe, like you've seen in other jurisdictions, like in New York with Danielle Sassoon and Hagan Scott, and they were asked to do something they weren't going to do. And they then said, no, that's it, and we're leaving after years of service, public service to our state.
Senator, as we go forward, when you said, by the way, that there are more federal agents now in Minneapolis and St. Paul than the entire local police departments.
10 local police departments, Lawrence, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and then some surrounding suburbs. Yes.
Yeah, and that's not to say that Minneapolis and St. Paul did not have enough law enforcement there to keep the city orderly as it was before ICE arrived. Every disorderly moment that has occurred since ICE arrived in the city.
Well, and the police chief, Chief O'Hara, very well respected. Remember, it's his force that when the kids were shot in the school, officer was there in 3 minutes. And they had everyone, 20-some people on ambulances in about 18 minutes. That's that police officer. That's those police officers. So he asked ICE not to come in. And again, assistance with fraud cases, good. Those need to be prosecuted. But he asked them not to come in on the streets. And instead, in defiance of the police chief and law enforcement, they have sent in a battalion. And they keep sending more and more and more. And you think about the money, $2 million just in overtime for Minneapolis police, but hundreds of thousands a day for this when they could be funding our government, and this came out of the big, beautiful betrayal of a bill. The government could be funding local police, could be funding efforts to protect citizens and go after burglars and criminals. But instead, what are they doing? They are literally flooding the streets of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a number of other cities around there.
It's hard to know exactly what's happening on the street there now. We did see what appeared to be some flame in certain spots. There were reports earlier that that officials were possibly using flashbang devices as crowd control, or and so we're not exactly clear what it is we're seeing down there. Yep. Not a lot of people.
Well,
though,
we are. I mean, they are. I talked to the governor, and people are asking people to not go to that area. Just because they're trying to, one of the things that our citizens have done, and we keep telling them, is don't take the bait. Don't take the bait when Donald Trump tweets out retribution. Don't do it. Just go about your lives and help your neighbors and be there. And if you're out there, film things, but just do not go to that scene right now.
Well, I think that, as far as we can tell, the thing that we don't see in that image from this high-altitude shot that we have right now is people. There are very, very few people on that street. So that message, Senator, seems to be getting through. Right.
It's also very cold there tonight. So, you know, people would get really cold.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for your good work.